March 25th, 2013. Let me call the Boothbay Harbor Selectmen's meeting to order. As is our usual wont, our financial officer, Julia Latter, in the audience. We also have our planning board chairman, Mike Tomko, our recording secretary, Kelly Bigos, our town manager, Tom Wooden, select persons, J.D. Warren, Art Hathaway, Valerie Young, Robert Spillane, and I'm Bill Hamblin. The first order of business tonight is to approve the minutes of March 11th, 2013.
I move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I did have a couple of minor corrections. Under new business, it talks about my meeting with Bobby and Scott, and it should be Robbie and Scott. That's probably enough.
Somebody just hand that to her, so she has to put it in. Hand that to Kelly, so
I
she
had
knows.
some other corrections, but they're not important, so we don't need them.
All right.
So any further corrections? Seeing any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Minutes are approved. That brings us to financials, and I'll turn the floor over to Julia.
Total revenue year to date, $6,432,059.79. Total expenses year to date, $5,468,505.85. Does anyone have any questions on revenue and expenses? Taxes were payable on March 14th, we're at 93% collected year to date thus far. So, and we're on target for revenue and expenses as of today, compared to this time last year.
Anybody have any questions for Julia? We're on track? Things look okay?
Yes, it is.
It looks like we've done a good job on the winter operations.
The overall budget looks good.
Yeah,
Compared to what we've had for
Because that's a big issue, isn't it?
snowstorms we've had.
Given the amount of snow we've had,
Yes, exactly.
those look like pretty good numbers.
The bank balances of today was $3,157,431.92. And the accounts payable for this evening was $157,835.98.
Looks good? Anything else for Julia? Thank you. Brings us to town manager announcements. Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mid-afternoon, there were preliminary school budget numbers sent to Boothbay and Boothbay Harbor. Now, keep in mind, neither one of these has been approved by their board yet, so they're very preliminary. But the good news, at least for the harbor, is that the increases to our school budget down here is either around $30,000 or $60,000, and the difference there depends on how the governor handles the retirement issue with the teachers. So at this same moment, this budget information is being discussed at the Boothbay town meeting with their board. So, and again, just keep in mind, these are not carved in stone, but directionally, it's pretty good.
Could have been a lot worse, I think, yeah.
That's a nice surprise.
Yep.
Yep. At the last meeting, there was conversation about our website not being up to date. So the next day, I emailed Gary Guzzo from Atomic Studios, who maintains the website for us for free. And he has all that information. He has also had an ongoing dialogue with me that he has 20 or 30 paying clients that are pressing him right now as we come into spring, and that the site was designed so that it can be maintained in-house as well. So he and I are going to be meeting about that. So I will probably maintain, the boards and committees and information that's old going forward.
Excellent.
So
Good.
some of you have probably seen a press release for the Route 27 sidewalk project. It's up on the Boothbay Register website. I'm not sure if it's in the paper yet or not, but Department of Transportation has selected the Route 27 sidewalk project for construction funding in the Maine Dot work plan for 2014 and 2015. The money will be available in either 2014 or 15, depending on design and work progress. Estimated funding for the project is $667,206. So that's a good sign that project's continuing along. And I believe there was also some conversation about Statoil at our last meeting. I wanted to give you an update from an email that I got from High Wind, Maine, just letting us know that they've had some positive developments in the project lately, two of which I've circled here, and they are Maine Public Utilities Commission review and approval of financial terms for the project in January 2013. And the other one is Statoil with partners University of Maine and NREL, I don't know what that acronym stands for, being awarded a federal grant awarded by the Department of Energy as one of 7 national offshore wind demonstration projects. So they're very pleased that they're continuing along with getting their funding and continuing through the permitting process. And that is all I have for updates at the moment.
All right, thank you. Any comments? That brings us to public hearings. We have 3 liquor license renewals tonight, one from Not Gray's Wharf, one from the Opera House, and one from Fisherman's Wharf Inn. Let's see, Not Gray's is looking for malt, spiritus, and Venus, and I have the application here. It's been initialed by the police chief. The Opera House is also looking for malt, spiritus, and Venus, and it's also been initialed by the police chief. And Fisherman's Wharf Inn is also looking for all 3 and has been initialed by the police chief.
I'll move we approve all 3.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve all 3 renewals for liquor license in the town of Boothbay Harbor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? They're approved. That brings us to the first public forum. Just as a way of introduction to public forum, I wanted to say a few words. I was struck by at the St. Andrews meeting last week of what a wonderful job Mary Lou Zimmerly did in moderating, and also I wanted to borrow liberally from her in her initial comments about meetings and how they should be conducted. And in fact, our rules and regulations talk about our public meetings and how they should be open, polite, and productive. And I wanted to remind everyone of that and remind everyone that we are discussing ideas, not people. And while we may disagree with an individual's ideas, we are not finding the individual disagreeable. We've been pretty good about that, but certainly there have been times when collectively we've strayed from that goal, and I just wanted to bring that to the fore. I also want to remind the audience that while we all value your input, particularly the regulars, and I see regulars and new attendees tonight, who take the time to attend nearly all of our meetings and inform themselves of what's going on in the town, that the ability to speak at a selectmen's meeting is actually a clear privilege, not a right. And MMA is quite clear on that. And while I personally would never refuse anyone the ability to speak at a selectmen's meeting with an appropriate comment or question, we must also weigh the fact that, as dedicated as all of you are, it's but a small fraction of the total citizenry that we represent. And while this meeting is open and public, it's not a collective decision process among those of us attending. It's a decision process of the selectmen, and only we are responsible for those decisions. So I want to encourage the audience to keep the comments polite, keep it to the point, please be specific, and avoid lengthy speeches either for or against any particular topic. And if we do that, I think we will all be better off for it, and I thank you. Having said that, I'll open the floor. Any comments?
Sure.
Frank Fassett.
Frank Fassett, Boothbay Harbor. Am I a regular yet?
You are a regular.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for the agenda this week on Facebook, and it's a very good one, and it was available early, and I appreciate that a lot. So I complain when it's not there, and it's looking good. So Mr. Wood, now that you're getting towards handling the website, are you going to be able to keep the town calendar up to date? There was no mention of the Chamber of Commerce meeting tonight on the town website. The up-and-coming meeting on the 8th of April, the Watergate Public forum hearing that we have on the water department vote is not on there either. And I would think that would be an important one to get on the schedule. Is that-
I hope to be able to update all of those once I learn how to do it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for keeping it short.
My father's fault.
Anybody else? Mike?
Mike Domko, Booth Bay Harbor. Just to let you know that on the 21st of March, there was a planning board workshop that was held up in Waldoboro, and it was sponsored by Bob Fawns of the Regional Planning Commission and Bill Napower, who was a Waldoboro town planner. There was really good attendance. We had both, I attended and Jeff Smith, your code enforcement officer, attended. There was probably maybe 20 other individuals. We talked over basic procedures and went into depth about subdivision and site plan review, and there's a lot of great ideas that came out of it that I'm going to be bringing back to our board. Bob's going to be continuing to offer continuing education for planning boards, and I hope to get more of our members to go to that. But out of this, we're going to start a opportunity for doing some planning for land use code review. So look for that in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? That brings us to old business, and the first item under the agenda under old business is the St. Andrews Task Force Activity Report, and I'll turn the floor over to Valerie.
Okay, well,
You were snowed out, right?
Well, yes, once again, not much to report in that we were snowed out of our last meeting. There will be the regular meeting on April 2nd at 7 p.m. and we will have either a formal or informal meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Depending on the number of task force members we get to attend. But there will be volunteers and discussion and the usual updates in business. And so I expect to have more to deliver at the April meeting.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you. The next item under old business is a review of policy on tax acquired property. As many of you are aware, from time to time, the town runs into situations where taxes are not only delinquent but extremely delinquent on various parcels of property. And the town, not always, but sometimes places a lien on that property, and then if the owner continues to default, the property becomes tax acquired to the town. We have had a set of policies on how we proceed with that, but they haven't been codified and written. And we have a situation like that in town right now, and we held a workshop on February 21st with Rob Crawford, who is a lawyer for the town, and reviewed a model set of policies and procedures, actually based on the Freeport policies and procedures, that really just sets out what the steps should be as the town goes through the tax acquired process. Again, I don't think there's anything in here that we're not currently doing. I don't think it's a new policy, but I think it does write down for us those steps. And it's, I think, as much to remind those of us who are involved with that as to all the things that need to be done and the order they need to be due, as it is anything else. For example, getting insurance on the property in the name of the town as opposed to the older, how long the prior owner has to pay off the debts and reclaim the town. That's a matter of state law, but we want it codified. And so what is before the board tonight is a draft of that policy that we've all had for 2 weeks or more to review. And so I would turn the floor over to the selectmen to see if there's any questions or comments they had on these, and should we continue to adopt this.
I just had a couple of little
Yeah.
changes. I think I noticed you already fixed some of yours. I think we should go ahead with it.
I never get you to talk, Art. I did notice a couple of, one typo and one issue. The typo occurs under the proceeds of a sale of tax acquired property. That is, the town, it's never the town's intent to be an owner of property. And so the most likely event is that we would sell it to recoup the back taxes and whatever liens are on the property. And this particular policy item is listing where the monies from the sale would go, and it lists the order. And the first, that all taxes, interests, and costs under the tax lien process shall be paid to the town, including all costs incident to the sale of the property. Second is all outstanding sewer rates, assessments, and other lawful charges incurred by Booth Bay Harbor Sewer District shall be paid. And third, all outstanding, it should say, it currently says sewer rates, it should say water rates, assessments or other lawful charges incurred by the Booth Bay Harbor Water District. Yeah, you're right. It's Booth Bay, not Booth Bay Harbor Water District,
Yeah.
Booth Bay Region Water District. And then fourth, any remaining balance paid to the town general fund. So, can I assume that those changes are part and parcel of what we're discussing now?
Yep, I can easily change those tomorrow
Yeah.
morning.
Okay. The second point that I had was in the next article. It talks about the option that the prior owners have to repurchase the property. Until such times the selectmen decide that the disposition of the tax-acquired property, the property may be repurchased by the persons or persons owning the property immediately before the tax lien foreclosure, or persons who have acquired a legal interest in such property as a result of death of a former owner. And it goes on to say the purchase price to reacquire the tax-acquired property is the full amount of all unpaid and outstanding and due real estate taxes, charges, interest, and all of the town's costs, including the town's filing, legal, and attorney fees as of the date of the repurchase. I think we should add in the sewer and water charges if possible as well,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah,
cover
sure.
that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Okay.
All costs.
Yeah. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight the last article in this policy, which reads as follows, and this is not a change, I just think it's worth discussing and getting out there. To assist resident senior citizens in remaining in their homes, senior citizens are encouraged to participate in the Elderly Tax Deferral Program as set forth in 36 MRSA sections 36250 and sequenced and following. During the time that residents and properties are afforded the privilege of the Elderly Tax Deferral Program, the town will continue to secure and perfect its right to collect property taxes assessed against such properties through the tax lien procedures under state law. That program is a program by which people who are over the age of 65 and under some income test can petition to have their tax payments deferred so that they do not have to pay those taxes. And they're deferred until there's a defining event, either the person passes away or the house is sold or some other event, in which case all the back taxes have to be paid. But they do not have to, they can be deferred while the person is living in the house. And it's a program that, state law, to help people stay in their houses at the end of their lifetimes. And there is some reimbursement from the state to the town for those taxes that the town would otherwise be collecting. It's not one for one, but there is a partial reimbursement of that, so the town doesn't suffer the full cost of that deferral. And I think people should be aware of that. If they're in a situation where they're having a tough time meeting their tax requirements and they can arrange to do this, it would be a good thing. And I believe it is the sense of the select board that we wish that the town will participate in that program. Any other comments on this?
No.
Do I hear a motion to adopt this policy?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the policy entitled Town of Booth Bay Harbor Tax Acquired Property Procedures and Policies. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. The next item under old business is parking ticket enforcement. This was an issue that was raised in late January by Frank Fassett, and the concept was to offer forgiveness to first-time parking offenders, as was reportedly done at Carabasset, Sugarloaf. And the concept would reportedly create goodwill and help business. Have that fairly stated?
Perfect, nice and short.
Okay. I met with the town manager and later with the police chief twice and learned a number of things. I don't want to monopolize the time. If others would like to speak first, please do so. what I learned was it has been looked into and rejected previously. I also learned that Boothbay Harbor is not an aggressive ticketing town and frequently already grants relief when the offender has a credible excuse or difficulty. And the proof of that is because of their responsiveness. The parking ticket complaints have dropped precipitously since Chief Hash took over. And in fact, we now get more compliments than complaints, which is really a remarkable achievement for the police chief, and I commend him on that. He was very concerned, as was the town manager, I think it's fair to say, about the combined impact of this program because it would decrease revenues and increase costs. Increase costs in order to track who had gotten a parking ticket more than once. We don't do that right now, so it would require new, and decrease revenues, obviously the loss of the parking tickets. The parking ticket revenues for the Boothbay Harbor is not huge, but it's not insignificant either. It's about $16,000 a year. That's not including the revenues from the parking lots. It's the on-street parking tickets that get offered. And then, perhaps very importantly, we learned that, in fact, it's not the town of Carrabassett that does it. It's the mountain. It's a private parking on the mountain. The mountain subcontracts to the town police for enforcement. And so this is a private parking forgiveness. And because it's private, sort of regardless of their policy, they only collect about 2% of the money that they write tickets for. It's a very, very small amount. So I think we've looked into this in some detail, but for me personally, for all those reasons, I don't think it's suited to the harbor, and I would not propose that we go forward with it.
I agree. I think our parking management is excellent, the way it is.
I'd have to agree
I
also.
agree too.
Okay.
We're doing a good job.
I would add that I think that we should just keep it as an idea for future if our technology ever improves where we're carrying around computers and printing out on site like they do in Portland. I completely agree. When I went to Portland and I got my first parking ticket and I learned that it was forgiven, I thought it was great and had a lot of goodwill for Portland and the city of Portland.
I
And
will also comment that Portland has discontinued the program.
oh no.
They discontinued it depending upon who you talk to, either because it was too expensive or because it was ineffective. And again, depending upon who you talk to. But they tried it and stopped it.
I can completely see where it would be
Yeah,
harder to maintain.
yeah.
But in theory, I like the idea.
Yeah.
And I have gotten a ticket here and had it forgiven, so.
There you go.
Doesn't speak highly of my
There you
parking
go.
skills. but-
You know, there's a fine line to walk between trying to continuously improve the town and our operations, but also allowing our department heads, who I think we have exceptional department heads, particularly in our police chief and in our public works, to run their department. And if they uniformly think it's a bad idea, it probably is. Not that we shouldn't look into it, but we shouldn't try and micromanage them either. We done with this topic?
Done.
That brings us to new business. Does anyone have any new business?
No.
Seeing none, we move on to the second public forum. June.
I just have a question relative to the state program of senior tax. I didn't hear, or maybe I didn't just catch it. Does that apply to you, not only your primary residence, but if you are a summer resident also?
I'm trying to remember what I read. It has to be it has to qualify as a homestead residence, and
So that's primary.
I think summer homes may in fact qualify, but I'm not sure.
I don't think you can homestead.
If you can't homestead it, then I believe this would not qualify. It would be your primary residence then. We can look it up and find out and report on it at next meeting.
That'd be interesting to
Yeah.
know.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Sewell?
Sulematics. I'm a business owner in Booth Bay Harbor at BBH's clothing store. I'm open 12 months a year, and I'm not open 5 or 6 months a year, and people close and go away. And I've been observing the parking issues in this town for quite some time. And I don't really agree with what you're saying as far as how parking is enforced in this town. Maybe in a season, I don't have too much to say there. You have your people swiping tires
Yeah.
and stuff. But between Columbus Day and Memorial Day, the parking enforcement is non-existent. And the town wonders what happened to the downtown district and why there's no stores there. It's about access, it's what I believe. And the loss of access is from merchants employees parking in front of the store all day long.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely no enforcement. And I fought with the chief of police with it, and I just gave up. And it's, you guys can all look at the floor or do whatever you want to do, but there's no enforcement on parking from Columbus Day to Memorial Day. And it's, for somebody that's open 7 days a week, to sit and watch somebody park in front of the door all day long, and then watch an elderly person drive away 3 or 4 times, hunting for a parking spot, and you lose that business. I see that, and I understand it. And you guys have, I believe, have absolutely no idea what that entails. And so I think there's a total lack of enforcement in the off-season, and it's wrong.
All right. We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Bill, I'm at a disadvantage sitting way back here in the back, but I couldn't hear you.
That was your choice.
But when you were discussing tax acquired property.
Yes.
Are you recovering, essentially, you take the property, you sell it, and then you pay the water company and the sewer company? Well, that's a good deal for them.
Well, what I read was we pay the town's costs first, and then if there's anything left over, we pay the sewer company, and if there's anything left over, we pay the water company.
Right, less what you're paying all the legal fees and doing all the recovery.
The town's
for them.
costs include our legal fees.
All right, and they pay the percentage or share of that?
Yep, they pay all of that.
Good. I mean, the water company, for you recovering their outstanding bills, they pay you a fee?
No,
No?
no,
They'd have to pay somebody else a fee if they had.
that's true.
So,
That's true.
I mean, and they probably, I don't know, how much do they charge annually for the hydrant rental? There's no deal there.
No, as near as I can tell, the town gets no deal on water.
You may want to reconsider what you recover and who you give it to.
There are both state, I'm not sure if it's mandated, but state fees that are permitted for us to recover as part of this process. And we do recover those fees, all that we're allowed to. I don't know about tacking on an additional service fee for recovering sewer department and water department
I mean, most
delinquencies.
Most debt recovery places, they're like at 50%.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it's not a regular occurrence, and if we ever, even if it's sold for half of market value, often that's many, many times more than the back taxes and history, so the excess would go to the town's general fund.
So that money doesn't have to go back to the property owner?
No. Once
When
the
you
fork.
When you repo a car after everybody's paid for it, and if there's money left, if it goes to auction and there's money left over, money goes back to the...
Once the foreclosure has happened, the town is the owner of the property. Now, we try and give the prior owners every break and every opportunity to repurchase the property, but if that doesn't happen, and it's almost a 2-year evolution by the time we're done, then the town owns it outright. Anybody else?
On that same subject, there's and I'm interested because there's a piece of property right at the end of the road leading up to my rental that has gone into foreclosure, and the upkeep on that property, it was hard to get anything done there last summer. And I know this summer, I think another neighbor is gonna end up cutting the grass and keeping the property up. Are there any, do we have any recourse at all on property that's been virtually abandoned right in the middle of town?
Not until we foreclose on it.
My understanding is that the bank has foreclosed on that,
No, then it's not our property.
and that so it's not your property.
Yeah.
So I would have to find out what bank holds that.
Right.
Yeah, you would need to call the bank and tell them they're not maintaining their property to the proper standards.
There should be a note on the door that says who the property manager person is.
Okay, all right, I'll look into that.
Yeah. We've actually been in awkward situations where our insurance company has advised us not to touch properties for liability reasons until the title is clear.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Katrina?
I actually have a couple of questions. I was wondering if there's been any movement on the fish pier, if the construction is going to move forward, or if anyone has expressed interest in being a tenant.
We are moving into executive session after this to discuss the fish pier and economic development.
Okay. Since I know I can't go to that. My only other question is, I know the town meeting is coming up, and I believe a couple of select board positions may be opening up. Is that correct?
There are three, to my knowledge, three select board positions that are opening up. My term is up, Art's term is up, and Valerie is resigning.
Have anyone expressed interest in running?
There are three candidates running.
And that would be
Nice.
you, Art, and I know you're not running because you're resigning.
I believe Denise Griffin is the third.
Griffin, thank you.
Is that not correct?
That's right, she's returned her papers.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? That's the end of the second public forum. As I just said, we are now going to move into executive session to discuss the economic development of the fish pier under MRSA Section 4056C. And we also may discuss acquisition of real property under MRSA Section 4056C as well, which will allow us to discuss the foreclosure issues. And so at this time, I would like everyone who's not part of the executive session to please leave the room. It's the economic development of the fish pier, and no decisions were made during our executive session. That brings us to warrants.
So we're returning now to regular public session.
We are returning to regular public session.
There we go.
There you go.
You got it.
I move we approve the warrants upon review.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the warrants upon review. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? We are now on agenda item 12, move to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, there can be no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.